The sirens still echoed across the base long after the flames had turned to smoke. What was left of the sky looked bruised, streaked in red and gray, as if it too had suffered the pain of what had happened that morning. Captain Emma Hayes stood alone on the tarmac, her helmet still in her hand, her flight suit streaked with dust, oil, and a trace of someone else's blood. The world around her felt distant. The voices of her commanders, the chaos of ground crews, the shouts from emergency teams. None of it registered. She just stared at the horizon where moments ago 2 fighter jets had vanished into a ball of fire. They told her she had made a judgment error, that her call had cost lives, that her split-second decision in the air had gone against direct orders. Within 20 minutes she was grounded. Her wings, the very thing she had dedicated her entire life to earn, were stripped from her. The jet that had been her second home for years now belonged to someone else. But no one knew what really happened in the clouds that day. No one knew what she had heard over that static-filled radio channel, the faint voice that would later save 200 people. Emma had grown up under the sound of jet engines. Her father had served as a Navy pilot. Her mother was an engineer who helped design flight systems. Flying wasn't just her dream, it was in her blood. She was the kind of woman who never accepted limits, who could find calm in chaos. Every flight for her was a balance of faith and science, fear and courage. But even with her spotless record, she always felt like she had to prove herself twice as much as everyone else. Being one of the few women in a combat-ready fighter squadron came with its silent tests. The looks, the doubts, the whispered "she got lucky" comments after every successful mission. So when the incident happened, the accusations hit harder than any missile. It was a standard patrol along the southern corridor, routine, uneventful until radar picked up something unexpected. A large civilian airliner off course, not responding to signals, its transponder malfunctioning. Protocol was clear. Intercept, establish contact, ensure no threat. But as Emma and her wingman approached, something didn't feel right. The airliner wasn't just off course. It was moving erratically, almost as if its pilot wasn't fully in control. She could see it, a silver blur trembling in the wind, losing altitude fast. Then came the impossible moment. The radar from base screamed a false reading, showing the jet's coordinates overlapping with a restricted zone. Command thought it was a hijacking attempt. Orders came sharp. Intercept and neutralize if no response in 30 seconds. But just before the timer hit 0, Emma's headset cracked with static, and then, through the noise, came a broken, terrified voice. "This is Flight 778. We've lost both engines. 200 souls aboard. Mayday, Mayday. We're trying to land." The voice was faint, almost buried under static, as if coming from miles away on an old, dying frequency. She froze. That signal wasn't coming through the official channel. It shouldn't even have been reachable from her comms. But she recognized the urgency in that voice. She heard the panic, the desperate professionalism of a pilot clinging to life. In that heartbeat, she made her choice. She broke formation, ignoring her commander's repeated orders to fire if unresponsive. She switched her frequency, confirmed visual contact, and began guiding the failing airliner down, using her jet as a visual beacon through thick clouds and turbulence. Minutes felt like years. Her own plane rattled as she descended lower than protocol allowed, flying dangerously close to the crashing airliner. But she didn't care. Every instinct screamed that if she left them, those people would die. She called coordinates to the nearest safe landing zone, her voice steady even as alarms blared inside her cockpit. When the airliner finally broke through the clouds and landed, hard, rough but alive, Emma's hands trembled on the controls. Her oxygen was nearly gone, her systems damaged from the turbulence, and she barely made it back to base. But she did. She landed. And she thought for a moment she'd done the right thing, until the briefing room turned silent, and her commanding officer placed the report in front of her. "You disobeyed a direct order," he said coldly. "You compromised air defense protocol. You endangered your wingmen. Effective immediately, you are grounded." Her protests didn't matter. The signal she heard? There was no record of it in the comm logs. The frequency didn't exist. The base's systems showed nothing but static. They called it a false narrative. They said she had panicked. Within days, her story spread through the corridors like wildfire. Some pitied her. Others avoided her. A few even mocked her behind her back. Hayes thought she heard ghosts. But she knew what she heard. She knew that voice. And 3 days later, proof would come from the one place she never expected: the Pentagon. It started quietly. An encrypted message came from Washington marked urgent. They were conducting an audio analysis from airspace recorders after a civilian aircraft had made an emergency landing near a coastal field. The recording revealed something chilling. The Mayday call Emma had heard, faint but real, captured faintly in the background of radar transmissions. The Pentagon's tech division enhanced the recording. The room went silent as they played it before a board of officers. And there it was, clear as a heartbeat, the desperate pilot's voice saying exactly what Emma had claimed. "This is Flight 778, 200 souls aboard." They replayed it again. No one spoke. The senior officer leaned back in disbelief. Somehow, through layers of interference and malfunction, Emma's jet had picked up a stray analog signal from the failing plane, something no one believed possible with modern digital systems. When the full report came out, the Pentagon officially confirmed Captain Emma Hayes' decision to ignore the neutralize order directly saved over 200 passengers from certain death. The malfunctioning radar at base, combined with a false hijacking alert, had created a tragic misunderstanding, one that only her instinct, her defiance, and her humanity had prevented from turning into catastrophe. The same commanders who grounded her now stood at attention when her name was read at the Pentagon ceremony weeks later. Her wings were restored, but this time, the medal that came with them carried a deeper weight. Not for combat, not for victory, but for conscience. For courage that doesn't need orders. When she stepped onto the stage, the room erupted in applause. But her eyes were on the screen behind her. The image of the passengers she had unknowingly saved, standing together on a runway holding a handmade banner that read, "Thank you, Captain Hayes." She smiled through tears, knowing that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought in the sky, but inside the soul, between what's right and what's expected. That night, she stood by the hangar again, watching the same horizon where it all began. The engines roared in the distance, alive and restless, just like her. She ran her hand over the smooth metal of her jet, her reflection faint under the moonlight. She whispered softly, "You and I, we did the right thing." And the wind seemed to whisper back, "If this story touched your heart, if you believe courage means doing what's right even when no one believes you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it." Before we end, I'd love to know, what does true bravery mean to you? Tell me in the comments below.